everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make some burlap and paper flower embellishments, and this is a great project to use up some scraps, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is cut a bunch of burlap circles, and when I make these I usually cut my circles in 3 different sizes, sort of a small, medium, large, and I use the smallest ones for paperclip embellishments. When I'm done cutting my circles, I like to use a little fray check to put around the edge because burlap really frays. And if you don't do something to stop it, it will just completely disintegrate. You don't have to use fray check. It's just something that I happen to have on hand. You can use any kind of glue and just put it around the edges and let it dry. Now let's go ahead and gather up a bunch of papers. And I use a lot of scraps when I make these embellishments. So I'm going to pull out some scrapbook paper scraps, some deli paper scraps, some of my blueberry dyed paper, some of my avocado dyed paper, book pages. What else do we have here? Oh, I like to use my butcher paper for these projects too. And my butcher paper is something that I tape down on my work surface, and whenever I'm doing any kind of mixed media or I'm working in my art journal, sometimes I will have some butcher paper set aside to protect my work surface, and I put a lot of extra paint and I will clean off a stamp there. And anyway, so after that kind of gets built up with a bunch of stuff, I will put it aside and use it for projects like this where I cut up some of the interesting parts in it. So now, just like the burlap, I'm going to take my scraps and I'm going to cut a bunch of circles. And I'll do it in different sizes. You can always make them smaller. So I try to just use up all the little bits. And then when you have all of them assembled, and I'll make little piles of them, and then we will start to put our flowers together. So now that I've picked out all my papers and I've cut them to the right sizes for the order that I want them to be in, I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. I'm not going to put the glue all the way to the edges. I want the edges to be not glued down. So I'm going to keep the glue mostly in the center of each layer. Now that I'm through gluing my layers together, I'm going to top it off with a button. Also, I'm using Fabri-Tac to glue these layers together. That's just my favorite glue for a project like this. And you can use any glue that you have. One thing to keep in mind is if you are using deli papers or butcher paper, some kind of paper that does have a plastic coating on one side, that's not going to stick. So what I do in that case is I will sew with my sewing machine or just a regular needle and thread through all the layers to make sure that they are joined. Now I'm going to set them off to the side just so that they can dry. So here are my finished flowers, and now I'm going to take some burlap that I dyed in my avocado dye, and I'm going to put a ruffle around the back of the flower, and I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac for that also. Making the ruffle is easy, and I don't measure, I don't think about it. I just glue down the first piece, and then I use my fingers to fold the fabric in place, and I hold it, and then I just keep folding it on itself as I go around the flower. For my fabric strips that I used for this project, I took my muslin and I just made a snip in it, and then I tore the fabric. And I like doing that because it gives that really rough frayed edge on the fabric. Sometimes after the ruffle has completely dried on the back, I like to take the flower and I will just scrunch it in my hand. And what that does is it gives the edges of the flower, the paper edges, just a little rougher, crinklier look. It's a little more dimensional, and I really like it. I don't do it for every project, but so that's one thing you can do when you're done is take it and just scrunch it in your hand. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the paperclip embellishment, and this is easy. First, we're going to put a ruffle on it, and I'm using a smaller piece of muslin for this smaller flower. And then I'm also going to cut a piece of burlap, slightly smaller, to fit on the back to hide the paperclip. So sometimes after my flowers are done, I go back and I look at them. If I see some areas that I wish were smaller so that a layer underneath can show through more, I take out my nail scissors and I trim around the edges. This is another reason why I don't like to glue the flower layers down all the way to the edge. I just glue the middles so that you can fussy cut it and make some adjustments later on. So now our flower is done. I'm going to take out my junk journal that I started a couple videos ago, and I'm just going to show you how this embellishment works in a junk journal. You can use it just as an embellishment and glue the whole thing down, or you can go ahead and make it a tuck spot and only glue just the edges. I really like the way it looks against this green scrapbook paper. I think that's my favorite. And now I'm going to put on the paperclip embellishment. I just love the way that looks. I think it's so cute. Also, you can use these flowers to embellish gift bags. So I took another piece of my avocado dyed paper and I just used an embossing folder, ran it through my machine, and you can go ahead and decorate the front. I haven't decided what else to do with this. Maybe I'll do a tag or a card for the recipient, but you get the idea. Also, I like to take a blank card and I'll stitch around the edges and then I'll go ahead and glue one of these flowers on, and you can stamp a sentiment, miss you, love you, something like that, and you can mail it to a friend. So that's it for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you'll give these paper burlap flower embellishments a try. Please leave me a comment and let me know if you have any questions, and show me pictures. If you give this a try, I would love to see what you do. So thank you again for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell so that you get notifications of future videos. And I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.